Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Rachel, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I'm so excited that you're here to join me for this intuitive development journey. Guys, I am so excited about today's episode. We have another life-changing messages episode in our little life-changing messages series. This is the series of clients of mine who have done a spiritual guidance session or reading with me and who have really taken the advice of their spirit guides and are here to show you what happens and what plays out when your guides give you some messages and how your life can really change exponentially in for the better when you get into alignment and you listen to what your guides have to say. So I'm so excited to introduce to you guys the beautiful Allie Jaffe. She is somebody who really took radical responsibility for her life and listened to absolutely everything her spirit guides had to say. And what's so interesting about this episode, you guys, is that often clients will ask me for a specific timeline, like when is this going to happen? How soon is it going to happen? And I usually hesitate to even ask the guides that, like how long is it going to take? But Allie's guides were so adamant on giving her a timeline, on telling her that she was going to quit her job and start this new business within 6 months. And guys, this is exactly what happened. She did it, I think, within 5 months of our session, and her whole life has transformed since then. Once we step into alignment, guys, things can happen fast. And sometimes our guides are willing to give us that exact timeline, which is so interesting to see. She is so inspirational and motivational in everything she has to say. And everything that Allie has done is just so beautiful. And it's such a testament to her and the work that she's done when it comes to listening to what your guides have to say and just jumping with blind faith into the unknown and doing the scary thing that our guides are asking us to do. And I really hope that this message, this podcast episode, this interview with Allie acts as a means of inspiration for you. That if you have been getting messages from your spirit guides, but they've been feeling a little out there, a little bit far off from where you currently are, that you'll use this episode as an example of what can really happen if you just leap into the unknown and do the thing your guides are telling you, even if it feels a little scary. So I'm really excited to bring Allie Jaffe to your ears, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Allie, to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I know we were talking about this earlier, but I mean it when I say that our session truly changed my life. So I'm just, it feels very full circle and very special to be here to be able to talk about it with you.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. I know. I think as soon as you sent me either a DM on Instagram or an email, I can't remember, and you were kind of like radiating, like glowing and saying like, "Oh
Oh,
my gosh, my life has shifted so much since our session, and it was all thanks to everything that we spoke about from your spirit guides." And right away I was like, "You have to be on the podcast."
well, thank you. Like it truly catalyzed so much change. And just how crazy accurate it was too. But that was less than a year ago, and a lot of what we talked about has come to fruition in a very specific way.
Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. So, I would love for you to sort of share, like, before we dive into sort of what's happened since our session, I would love to
Mhm.
sort of back up and kind of rewind and sort of, if you could share with us a little bit about sort of who you are, what you do now, but then do a little rewind and tell us, like, where are you from? What was your upbringing like? Were you raised with like woo-woo stuff? Was going to psychics like a natural, normal thing?
Can't say it was, Jessica.
No, not for most people, I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am based in San Francisco. I very recently launched a health coaching business called Healing Forward Health, which there's a lot from our session that we'll get into that has come to fruition with this coaching business. And it's designed for people who are looking to transform not just their physical health, but also their mindset. I really believe in the interconnectedness of true well-being and that our mind, body, spirit are very related, and that often emotional or mental barriers are what get in the way of us achieving physical outcomes. So I take a very deep, integrated approach to health and wellness. And it truly feels like my calling. And yeah, I'm just very excited to have that out in the world. And I'm offering one-on-one coaching as well as corporate consulting and wellness workshops. So weaving in my past corporate background as well. I'm also back in school studying integrative nutrition. Because I have a lot of personal experience in health and wellness and I'm very passionate about it, but I want to, make sure that I have the education to equip me to help people in this way. And then I'm also currently working at my husband's ice cream company. It's called Alex Ice Cream. Sadly, it's only in the US right now, but nationwide at Whole Foods and Sprouts. And all of that happened in the last few months. So our session truly catalyzed like really meaningful change for me in my life, which I'm very excited to get into. And then, as far as my background and upbringing, I was born and raised in Southern California with two very loving, very hands-on parents who are still together, and I'm very close with them. Spirituality was to the degree that I'm into it now, not as much talked about. I think both of my parents are very open to it. I was raised Catholic. My mom, being Catholic, is like very much a part of her identity. And I think that the values that I gained from having an upbringing where religion was a part of it is what I hold on to. I went to a Jesuit college. Like, there's a lot of values that come from that education that I really value and have influenced my life. But, that's organized religion. And then I think like looking back, something that really catalyzed my interest in spirituality and also was the impetus behind launching this health coaching business. My whole reason why, my health story really started in my early adolescence when I struggled with um, anorexia, and it is a disease that nearly took my life. I was hospitalized at 13 years old. And since then, it's been a long road to recovery, but I've been in recovery for many, many years. But that like life altering, earth shaking experience at such a young age catalyzed my desire for seeking like deeper meaning. And yeah, I think that's really what started my openness to spirituality. And fast forward to today, like I am fully out of the spiritual closet. I own it, I embrace it. And I beyond just like, working with you and bringing spirituality into my life, I also converted to Judaism last year. So that was another big change. And I felt so deeply called to it. My husband is Jewish, and it's like it's a part of our lives that I don't think either one of us foresaw that that would be such a deep and meaningful thing, but it truly unlocked like a deeper dimension of our relationship. So all of that to say, like I am a deeply spiritual person, and I am now in a place where I own it and embrace it and love to talk about it.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful story. And it's such a testament to your self-awareness as well, to kind of even look back at something that, really, someone could live in a victimhood mentality for a long time, having gone through such a difficult challenge at such a young age and kind of make that their identity. And instead, you transform that into your purpose. And that
Mm,
is just so gorgeous.
thank you. Thank you. Honestly, it was a part of myself that I wanted to hide, shy away from, especially like in adolescence. Like I carried so much shame around it, but it's a, such a big part of me. And now that I've, grown up and I've matured a bit and I like have acquired many tools and different healing modalities, whether it's therapy or, more out like somatic healing, um, shadow work. I've befriended my shadow, and it's now like I want to help people who have gone through similar situations. And yeah, it's truly my why. And even at 13, I had this vision recently. I have a visceral memory of like, being hospitalized at UCLA and knowing then I was going to help people. Like I was going to turn this into my purpose. I had a vision of me on a stage speaking to people, but I've known for a very long time that this was my calling. And yeah, I'm just like truly grateful that our session catalyzed like me actually taking action towards it.
Yeah, it's so gorgeous, and I also it's so interesting because I really think that, if we look at sort of your soul, and if I remember correctly from our session, we definitely discovered that you're a very old soul.
Yes.
From what I remember and from what I've learned over time from after channeling for, so many people, is there's one theme that comes up for the particularly older souls. And this theme is that they tend to choose a difficult beginning in some way, shape, or form. And they kind of, and not that, of course we live on the planet of free will, but it's almost like we make this agreement before we come down of like, I need to have these like tools in my tool belt in order to affect or create the biggest amount of change when I, in my adult life, if that makes sense. And so it's really interesting that in some ways, on maybe a subconscious or soul level, you kind of knew like this is not the end of my story. This is just the first chapter in, a much bigger message that's coming through. And so it's just so beautiful that even on a subconscious level, I would argue your intuition was really kind of already there, right? And
Yes.
pushing you forward. And I think that, thank goodness, right, that you really worked on recovery and now look at you. Like you're just glowing and radiating and doing all these amazing things. So that's just so beautiful.
Thank you so much. I mean, I truly believe like I'm turning my pain into my purpose. And yes, like honing my intuition has also been a huge part of this.
Mhm.
And I think that had I not sort of primed myself and done the personal spiritual work prior to working with you, what you told me in that session wouldn't have landed, or I just maybe wouldn't have been ready to hear it. But you really just illuminated and brought to the surface all of my deepest desires that maybe I wasn't ready to pull out myself, but you gave me that little nudge, that little push, and brought to the surface like truly the name of my coaching business. You kept saying Healing Forward, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that is the name of my health coaching business." And I had been contemplating that name for a few months. And like, it's just crazy. The intuition is a very powerful thing. And I'm still in my like early stages of honing it and being guided by it and like living through that. But it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And that's what I love in sessions, especially with clients or individuals who really actually do have a pretty strong and kind of attuned intuition. Maybe you just don't realize it's there, where you kind
Mm,
of receive these messages and you've been maybe thinking about them for a long time. And then we come into a session and it's like it's nothing new. And that's a good thing. It's like everything
yeah.
you had already been thinking about and maybe just been sitting on. And it acts as sort of like the confirmation. It had to be sort of said back to you, the things that you've been
Yes.
thinking. And it just kind of, propels you forward, which obviously is what happened for you. It was the kick in the pants you needed.
It truly was. And I think like for so much of my life, and it's a something I'm still really working on is my thinking brain loves to be in the driver's seat, and I'm very logical and I'm very pragmatic, and like my career choices prior to taking this big leap were all like what I thought I should be doing, what looked good on paper. And this felt very rebellious for me. It felt incredibly risky, and I fought it. And I actually took a job in tech where I was working in ad sales and big tech prior to taking the leap. And I don't know if you recall, but our session was on a Sunday late afternoon. I was starting a
About to
brand new
start
job that
the
next
next
day.
day. I remember. Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to take the leap, but the conversation, like once it was brought to the surface, I couldn't unshake it. There was nothing really against the job, but I knew immediately it wasn't right. And
Mhm.
it took me 5 months to part ways from it and like actually take action. But those 5 months were pretty agonizing, knowing that, like, wow, I know my calling, I know my purpose. I'm just afraid.
Mhm. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about where were you at? What sort of brought you to sort of have your first session with me and kind of brought you to this point where you were like, maybe I need to do this, right? Maybe I need to reach out to a spiritual medium.
Yeah, so I was first introduced to you through Julia Martin, who has been on your show and you've been on her show many times.
Mhm.
We worked at Twitter together years ago, not in the same org, but um, I actually was looking for a career coach when I was at Twitter because as much as I liked it, I liked my team. I felt that this is a saying that Julia had said as well, like the world wasn't seeing the best of me. My husband's an entrepreneur. I see him just like so motivated and lit up by his work, and it's really hard. But like I wanted to feel that sense of purpose and alignment and like lighting my soul on fire that I feel in many other parts of my life. In my personal life, I feel deeply fulfilled, and I've felt this like I want that for my career for a very long time. But working in the world of big tech and in ad sales, it's very cushy. It's a very good lifestyle. And so I wasn't quite clear yet on like what was going to call me to make this big change, but I knew years ago that I wanted to. And then I was introduced to Julia, who at the time was doing one-on-one coaching, and she is that combination of like type A go-getter, but deeply spiritual, and that really resonated with me. But I came to her thinking it was just going to be like career advice and that she was going to tell me like here's what you should do, which that's not that's not how coaching works. And then I worked with her, and the concept of coaching came to mind, or like I was first put on my radar. But then I didn't really do anything with it. And then fast forward a year or two later, I am now at a different tech company, and I was impacted by mass layoffs. I was working at Spotify. They laid off 25% of the workforce in December 2023.
Wow.
Um, and as rough as it was, Loki, it was a blessing because it was a kick in the pants and to like really get clear on what I want and like take inventory of how I want to, spend my time.
Mhm.
And then I rejoined one of Julia's group coaching programs called Dream Your Biz, because now I was like finally ready to embrace and explore the idea of coaching. So during that time off, and that was the beginning of last year, I dove into her program, and as part of her program is working with you.
Mhm.
And then there was a lot happening in my life at that time. I also was getting married, and so because of how much change was happening, I wasn't quite ready to fully step into this. I'm going to become a coach. I'm going to launch a business. It was just my nervous system couldn't take that much change. Um, so I was getting kind of antsy and I was like, I need to find another job. So I actually, like the week of our wedding, signed the offer letter for another tech job. And like it checked all the boxes on paper. It was a level up in my career. The pay was amazing. Their headquarters is in San Francisco. It's what I thought I should be doing. And then I get married, and then a week later, we have our session together. And I mean, I'm like kind of speechless because there was just so much that was said in that session that just rocked me to my core. And then I was like, wait, I am starting a new job tomorrow. So that's kind of like what led me and brought me to you.
Okay, amazing. So then, I mean, this is so cool and so beautiful. It's almost like you, again, there's like all these little breadcrumbs, and then there's also this piece that's sort of like, and then I got in my own way.
Oh, absolutely. That story of my life.
Right? Me too. All
Yes.
of us, really. So let's dive into this session a little bit. And again, I always have to kind of remind people that I am going to be sitting here kind of asking you, like, what was said? Because in the moment
Yes.
when I'm channeling, a lot of the times I'll forget a lot of the details. I definitely remember you had just gotten married. I remember you were about to start a new job the next day. And I remember also that your guides were very strongly going, you're not staying in this job.
Yeah. Yes.
So, can you share with us sort of what are some of the big things that kind of came up in the session that kind of you went, oh my God?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, my soul was a very old soul. And right off the bat, you were like, I am seeing my spirit guide kind of shape-shifting. So it wasn't like a clear visual right at first.
Mhm.
And that you later said, like, oh, your spirit has lived on many different realms. So I think she appeared as a mermaid and as a fairy and as an angel. And that I've lived many lives and not all of them as a human, um, but that I like had pulled experiences from all of these different lives and realms and like acquired a lot of tools, but that each realm wasn't quite right. And that let me think. I landed here and that my life's purpose was to help others heal themselves. And that to the point about things not being quite right, it was like I think you said that I get kind of frustrated with quick fixes or like not lasting change, basically, temporary solutions that I like lasting change and solutions that are like truly meaningful. And so that really resonated for me. And then you kept saying like helping others heal to propel them forward. And that really struck me because the name Healing Forward was the name of my coaching business now, and something that I had been contemplating for months. And that my spirit guide basically broke down like what the Healing Forward process is, and that it's doing deep inner child work, addressing our core wounds, improving our relationship to self, and then creating a plan for lasting change. And that is essentially what my approach is as a coach now. So that was also incredibly striking. You also said that this job that I was in was going to be the bridge and basically fund this life transition, and that I would be on this path within 6 months. Um, I didn't recognize this at the time, but I've since listened to our session multiple times. And I parted ways with my job in 5 months.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so there's so much more, but those were like the biggest things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot that you were a star seed. So when we say starseed, I mean like a soul who hasn't always incarnated as a person, so that maybe you've
Mhm.
jumped around to other realms,
Yes.
which is just that says so even more about you. That's so amazing. Yeah, that's really, really fun. And I do want to underline this one thing that you mentioned, which it's so funny. People are so surprised that this can happen in a spiritual guidance session that your spirit guide will literally lay out for you, like step by step. Here's
Yeah.
your business. Like, here's how you're going to run it. Here's exactly what it's going to look like. Here's the wording, the messaging, like everything, right? They
Yes.
can be that detailed. And of course, those types of messages will only come through if you're ready for it, right? So you have had obviously done a lot of the work in the background and we're ready for it. You just needed a little kind of kick or shove in the pants to make it happen. But right, you were kind of at a place where it was just like you just needed to get over that little hump. And so your guide was like,
Yes.
here it is. Like, here's all the things you need.
Yeah, it was crazy the level of specificity. Another piece that you mentioned is hosting, or that my spirit guide brought to the surface, was hosting retreats, and that's another thing that like has been a dream of mine for a long time. I will say, like, I've taken a lot of action, like that. Our session catalyzed a lot of inspired action for me. But I'm still in like the nascent stages of healing forward. But and for me, like as I mentioned, my thinking brain can often be in the driver's seat that it's really hard to just surrender and allow and trust. But that's part of the work. It's part of like the process for me. But I am just like really blown away by I was reflecting this morning on like March of last year when we met. None of these changes, like when I first introduced myself, all of those things that have happened since were just ideas, if that. And yeah, I'm proud of myself for taking action, even though it's scary and at the time felt very abstract and intangible.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And, this is really like one of these things where, sometimes our spirit guides, they give us something that feels big, right? It feels
Yes.
scary. It feels like almost a little bit like you have to take a leap of faith of like, you're telling me this thing that feels a little bit far from where I am right now. And as
Yeah.
you said, it felt like just an idea, right? And like to turn it into an actual tangible business, right? It takes some work on your part. But here's the beautiful thing, and I'm hoping that maybe you can share with us sort of some things that have happened since you started to get the ball rolling. Because what I've learned over time is that even though it feels like a leap of faith, even though it feels like I'm just going to take this big leap and
Mm,
I'm dive into the unknown and have no idea what's going to come on the other side, but I'm going to do it because my spirit guide said so.
mm,
Usually there's some synchronicities that happen, right? And your guides kind of they kind of tell you like you do the first 5% and we'll fill in the rest of the 95%, right?
mm.
And so
Yeah.
what has sort of played out for you since in the process of as you were kind of trying to get this going and off the ground, did it feel like a real grind or was did things kind of fall into place and were they in flow? Like how did it feel for you?
Hmm. To be very honest, a mix of both.
Okay.
And when we met, I think I also brought to the surface that like just transparently, I felt like there was more work I needed to do on myself to become a healer. And so I like unblocking and fully being open and fully surrendering to the process is something that I'm still working on. But even just like taking the action of recognizing that like how I want to spend my time, what I value from life. Marriage is also very clarifying for that, like just to get clear on like how you want to spend your time and what matters to you and what do you want to take with you and what do you want to leave behind. And um, as I reflected on that, I just realized like I I want to be soul aligned in my career, and it just became it as I just really felt that and stepped into that, it became increasingly harder to fake it.
Mm,
Um, my thinking brain was like, "Oh, you can totally launch this business while also having this corporate 9 to 5, and it'll be great." And like, it's the safer choice. And that just became increasingly more challenging for me. And then also a synchronicity that did happen is um, being the wife of an entrepreneur who started an ice cream company. Like I have been on the sidelines of Alec launching his business for 6 years. And when we first started dating, it was just an idea. And now he's nationwide in over 3,000 grocery stores. And it's just the beginning.
wow.
And it's literally all we talk about. I'm like, thank God he started an ice cream company because ice cream is a fun product to consume our lives. And
Right.
we were out to dinner with friends, and we were talking about Alex ice cream, and my friend was like, Allie, like, you're clearly so passionate about this. You speak about it so eloquently. Why don't you just work there? And I truly had never thought like or it didn't cross my mind that that was a possibility, but when in reality that was kind of the opportunity hiding in plain sight. And so I mentioned that because I like to take a full leap of faith is not in my personality. And so to leave a full-time corporate job to launch Healing Forward didn't feel safe to me. I was like, I need to bring in an income at some point, but I'm also like becoming increasingly agitated that this job that I'm in just doesn't feel aligned for me. And then I realized like I should work at Alex Ice Cream and like that can be the job that like while I'm launching Healing Forward can bring an income for me. And so that was another part of this process. And like that was a sign and a synchronicity that like maybe a few years ago or a few months prior, like I wouldn't have been ready to hear. But it felt like, oh, this is a great solution to make my dreams a reality. And now I'm spending my time on our family business, and it feels very meaningful. And it gives me somewhat of flexibility to also launch Healing Forward and go back to school for integrative nutrition.
That's so beautiful and so amazing. And I also want to underline here that like you said something that happens actually a lot, which is that when we're doing something that's not in alignment, we feel increasingly agitated and irritated with it. And so was you sort of having this aha moment about moving to Alex's company the thing that kind of pushed you to finally quit your job, or did something else happen in your job that kind of made you go, all right, time to leave?
Um, It was recognizing, it was more so like, wow, I can work in our family business. I can make meaningful change there. I mean, the people on the team were all very close, like they were at our wedding. Like it just felt like an amazing solution to take this leap. And so it wasn't really like, and that's actually what made it so hard to leave the corporate job because there was nothing wrong with it.
Mm,
Like there truly was nothing wrong with it, and it provided me like the perks and the benefits of big tech are like there's a reason they call it golden handcuffs. It's really hard to walk away from.
yeah.
Um, so I just felt more of a calling to how do I want to spend my time? I want to feel more fulfilled, more filled with purpose and make a meaningful impact for our family business.
Yeah. And I'm really like I just want to sit here and be like I'm so proud of you, but I am because you really like this is what drives us is that like you came down with this very specific purpose and even as your spirit guide mentioned that there was a lot of iterations of lifetimes for your soul that kind of went it didn't feel right. I'm here to really impact people in a very specific way.
Mm.
So, and that's really where this message of like the relentlessness of your soul kind of comes through,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like I'm here for this and nothing else is going to feel aligned. Nothing's going to feel good and I can try to push it down and I can try to ignore it, but that feeling is going to keep coming back and then I just have to
Yes.
do something about it. And you're one of the brave ones who finally went, "Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
Thank
it."
you. Thank you. That means so much. Relentlessness is the word. I mean, she's persistent. She really is. Because even like these past few months when I've since taken the leap and it's felt very scary at times. And sometimes I will think back, like, should I go back to ad sales? And I've realized that like it's not what I want. Like that's not the solution here, but it's what's familiar. And like I've stepped into unfamiliar territory for me. But I'm glad that I recognized that like, oh, like I'm not longing for the past because it's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just what's familiar.
Yeah.
And so I've just been holding on to that and um, I really, really just need to continue to trust and surrender that I'm on my path because I know that to be true, but I'm still fighting myself if I'm being really honest.
Yeah, I hear you. And I will say entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, right? I mean,
No.
there's so many unknowns. It's not a consistent paycheck that's coming in twice a month. And so
Yeah.
for sure, and I even for me, when I was kind of making that transition, and like you, I took a very long time. I made a very slow exit out of teaching.
Yeah.
I switched to substitute teaching, so I knew that I at least had something if I needed it, right? And I think that this is one thing that I kind of had to keep telling myself, and I've since kind of graduated from even needing this thought at all. But I definitely kind of had to keep reminding myself that like if all of it fails and I fall flat on my face, it's not like I lost my teaching degree. Like I can still go back to
Yeah.
I want to, right?
Yeah,
Like I have a
absolutely.
backup plan technically.
Yes, this actually made me think of another interaction that you and I have had in the past is so this past fall, I rejoined Dream Your Biz, and that was another catalyst for change. Joining Alex Ice Cream, leaving my corporate job, going back to school, and I rejoined Dream Your Biz, which is a cohort of women who are all at the very early stages of launching their coaching business. And so being surrounded by, and Julia Martin is the spearheader and leads that program. So being amongst other women these past few months as I took the leap, um, who are also launching coaching businesses was very meaningful, extremely helpful because it's very isolating. And entrepreneurship, as you mentioned, is very challenging. And so to have these other women to lean on and the guest speakers who came in, like yourself, and you did a group channeling session, which was extremely powerful. And I'm forgetting what the prompt was exactly, but we basically were writing, like collectively channeling our spirit guides and writing, like, what do we want to know? I guess I'll let you speak about like what we did there.
Yeah, no, so we were doing automatic writing, right? So that's sort of using
Yes.
their cognizance, allowing your spirit guide to channel through you. And I think I just had you guys write like a question on the page, something that you had about your business or what is my intuitive business, or I can't remember what
Yes.
the prompt was. Sometimes it's
No,
just
I think it
whatever
was
question.
you. Yes, you're right. Like we all got to, it's like, what do you want to know?
Mhm.
And I wrote, what is the healing forward dream state? Because I've since taken the leap and I'm so obsessed with the how. Like, how am I going to get there? How am I going to have a thriving business? And I wanted to know the specifics. And then, as in that channeling session, what just like literally poured out of me, pen to paper, was this is the dream state. You're creating something from nothing. You're building a soul aligned business that is your like soul's calling. And this process of building this is the dream state, girl. And I was like, oh, my spirit guide, she's so right.
They're so sassy sometimes, right? They
Oh
tell
yeah, yes.
I love it. And so this actually segues to the question that I've been wanting to ask you, which is how has connecting with your spirit guides in a tangible way where someone's maybe channeled for you helped sort of become a catalyst for the growth in the trust in your own intuitive abilities? Because as we said, I know beforehand you were like, these were all thoughts that kind of then got confirmed in our session.
Yeah.
Have you been trusting those downloads a little bit more since then?
Yes, I had a realization somewhat recently, and I kind of mentioned it earlier that these maybe in the past I looked at our session as like external confirmation or validation of like, oh, this like crazy idea you have in your head and that you feel in your heart, like there's some validity to it. Like you just were given a business plan. Okay, now go. And like that felt great to me. But when it's been challenging, when I'm filled with fear, I've been reflecting on this and I've come to the realization that like these signs, these synchronicities, these pings that we get are just illuminating what we know to be true on the inside. Intuition, essentially that is our intuition. And that like it's my job to get unblocked and work through the barriers and the stories that I tell myself so that I'm open to the signs. But these signs are not from the outside world. They're just illuminating what I truly know to be true. And so that's what I'm holding on to. I think that I'm still in the early stages and the like full trust, the deep surrender is still challenging for me if I'm being really honest, but I'm holding on to this that this is my calling and that I don't need to like I don't need to know the how. I fully trust that Um, I actually worked with like a different medium and what came to very recently, and the figure that came to the forefront for her was me 10 years from now.
Wow.
And like glowing, thriving, and she has this business, she has the kids, and that the business lives and breathes on its own, but and that was by design. Is that like I took this step in this direction, and that like to be a hands-on mom, but also have this like mission-driven, soul-aligned business, and that I can have both. And this is a long-winded way of saying like I fully trust that that's going to happen. And I think it's now my work to be done is to surrender to the process and just be so open and be so curious and let my intuition guide me because I know that that's going to be my reality 10 years from now. Like the long-term vision, I can hold very deeply and very authentically. But it's this like, how do I get there that I'm really still working on the full trust and surrender.
Yeah, ugh, that is so beautiful. You're such an inspiration. Really, really. Like the words that you say, I can see how this is going to be such a big and beautiful thing and you're going to impact so many people because I'm just sitting here like just holding on to every word that's coming out of your mouth. It's just so beautiful.
Thank you. That truly means the world.
No, you really are. You speak so well. It's really
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you. Thank
And
you.
there's the thing that you just said though, like, oh, I need to highlight this because wow, is that so impactful that you don't have to know the how, right?
Yeah.
And you can, it is this beautiful process of holding on to the big picture. What do I really want? And
Yeah.
often our spirit guides will paint that big picture for us. They kind of create the goalpost for you. This is where you're
Yeah.
headed. And then it's sort of like each day connecting and going inward and asking for just that one little next right baby step, right?
Yes.
You get so caught up in the plans and the details and all of the things that like I need to do this and I need to do this and hire this coach and try this and use this strategy because everybody else is doing this strategy. And
Yeah.
we can burn ourselves out trying to do that, right? And then
Yes.
instead, if we just kind of go, I see the vision that my guide painted for me or my future self. It sounds like you had a beautiful encounter with your future self, your higher self, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
And then kind of just ask, okay, higher self, like, give me today's tiny little baby step to bring me a little bit closer to where you are. And
1000%.
you'll just know today I need to call so and so, or I need to just, hit send on that email that I've been sitting on, or whatever it is. And the steps themselves feel so little and inconsequential usually. Like my
Yeah.
guys, I sometimes, and we get so caught up in hustle culture for sure, right? Especially here in North America. And there's definitely this feeling of, I need to be doing more. I need to be spending hours and hours a day on my business in order to get it to this place that I see for my vision.
Right.
So caught up in that. And really, and I fight my guides on this so much. I keep telling them, like, what do I need to do in my 3 hours? And they give me like 5 minutes of work. Right. And I'm like, that's all I have to do today. Like, are you serious? And, I'll do the thing. And then I'm just waiting. Right. And there's a lot of crickets. And then suddenly
Yeah.
comes flooding in later. And I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
really only needed to do that 5 minute task. Right.
It's so funny that you say that because I remember now in our session together asking, like, I'm so like the dream state that you've just laid out for me, I feel so excited about. But what do I do? How do I get there? I'm starting a new job. And that my spirit guide also said it's like 5 to 15 minutes a day. It's the tiny steps. And that actually that is a core principle of your coaching business. And it really is like that is what I preach and promote is like tiny habits that compound over time that like to achieve your health goals, it's not like making these radical shifts and changing your life because that's not what leads to lasting change. It's like little tiny consistent steps over time. So I love that message and I need to remind myself of that message more often. And you also bring up a good point that like allowing for space and room for things to come to you, to come to the surface, to feel really good, to get new ideas. And that's been hard for me because as a former corporate girl and very type A, like I like a full plate. I like to check things off a list. And being in the building stages of entrepreneurship, like there's always things I could be doing, but making sure that I'm giving myself room to go for walks, go for runs, cook, like get quiet. And that's when the ideas come. They really do. Like when I allow myself time to be in nature and not have a podcast in, not have any stimulus, that's truly when the ideas and the pings come to me of who should I reach out to? What should I post? What should I write about? And so I really encourage that for people who are launching businesses that, um, it's really hard, but you get to set the terms. And so, like, allow for space for these creative ideas to come to the surface. It's been really meaningful for me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I think that that should be within everybody's practice, right? A daily time to just go for a walk or be out in nature or just get quiet in some way. Because if you make the space for the downloads to come through, then you half or even like you really half or even less, like quarter your work time. Because then it's like the steps that you're taking, as minute as they feel, they're actually going to have that much more impact because they're coming directly from your source, right? Um,
Completely.
yeah, oh, it's so beautiful, and thank you for underlining or highlighting that message because it really is. And even if you're not launching a business, for those of you listening who are like, "That's great, I'm not an entrepreneur," and, any decision that I have to make, the really one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to connect with my own spirit guides way back in the day, yes, I didn't like my career and I was looking for a way out. But also, I really couldn't make a decision on my own. I could never do
Yeah.
anything without like asking everybody around me for their opinion and get asking them for permission for what was best for me. And nobody else knows what's best for you except for yourself and your spirit guides, if I can add. And so, the best thing to do is to then, instead of asking everybody else and their mother what is best for you, take a moment and just get quiet and just, okay, spirit guides, what do I need to know today? Or what do I do with this decision that I have to make? And what's actually most aligned for me? And then the right answer, it's always within you. It always comes to
Yes.
surface. And the more we get clear, we get better at trusting those pings, as you said. It's such a gorgeous
Yeah.
way of describing it. The way that they come through, like, and trusting that it wasn't just a thought, right? You don't overthink it because it comes in a quiet spot, in a calm spot, in a place of trust and peace. That's when your life really kind of just falls into place and into flow.
1000%. I'm so happy that you mentioned that. I too can deeply relate to having trouble making decisions and needing a lot of outside validation. And that has also been a very transformative part of this work and honing my intuition. And as a former, like, intense people pleaser, um, like it's been a incredibly valuable tool for me to work on getting quiet and just owning my authenticity and making decisions from my authentic self and knowing that, like, I know where my heart is, I know where my intentions are. This is like 100% me. Take it or leave it. And, like, there might be people in your life that, like, what is she doing? Like, oh, this is a little out there, or it might like bring something up for them. The choices that you make, like how bold and loud you want to be with owning your authenticity. And that is actually, like, I know I've been very like honest about how challenging it's been. That's been the most like transformative thing for me. And the part of this process that I'm just like very excited about and is just being so authentically myself and making decisions from that place as well and owning it and being vocal on social media and like trying to grow a social media presence which feels very vulnerable, but like I I'm just being me, and it feels really, really good. And so that will land with some people and it might not, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, when we're starting to shine really, really bright, for some people, what that brings up is their own potential that they're not allowing themselves to reach for. And
Mhm.
that's what tends to rub people the wrong way, is that you're showing them a potential within themselves that feels too scary to go after. And so then they kind of will. Possibly, sometimes that can look like criticism, right? Or
Yeah.
telling you not to, or trying to pull you back into the shadows, right? Because it's scary to acknowledge that we all have that potential and that like what is she doing? How like does that mean I have to be brave too? I'm not ready for that. Let's pull her back over here, right? And so that can happen, and as we grow, right, some people need to put sunglasses on, and that's okay, right? That's okay
Yes.
stuff. But it's so beautiful that you're really kind of stepping into your authentic self. And, I think that that's kind of the journey in everyone's lifetime, right? How do we come here choosing amnesia, right? We forget who we really are, and we spend the whole rest of our life trying to get back to remembering that. And it
Yes.
sounds like you kind of jumped on that train or that journey like sooner than most.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to bring it back to what I said earlier about just this like life-shaking experience in my early teens. It catalyzed a lot. I think that it really truly like experiencing such hardship. Life's too short. It really did catalyze like my purpose and wanting to come back to my most authentic self because I lost myself for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting because and not that there's a strong connection between an eating disorder and addiction, but there is sort of this feeling of, and I see this again a lot, some sort of pattern here with really old souls and these sort of being the things that they end up having in early life. And it's because they're trying to fill a God-shaped hole within them. There's sort of this
Wow.
thing of like something's missing and I'm trying to soothe or numb the gap that's there. And it really is a leap towards spirituality for most.
Yes.
If you would speak to any recovering addict, if you will, like on most of the time, the road to recovery is a spiritual one.
Yeah.
And so and I don't know if this is true for you, but especially because you were so, so young, but it really was sort of like I was trying to fill a need that I just couldn't grasp, and it wasn't in the physical world, right? It was really like this understanding of who am I and why am I here?
Wow. I've never really made that conscious parallel that, yes, you're right. An eating disorder is an addiction, and it's a challenging one because, like, we have to eat to survive.
Right.
But yeah, I never made that realization that, like, um, being in recovery and overcoming addiction is a very spiritual process. And while like the eating disorder community or people in recovery are definitely a community that like I am in that world, so I feel very like confident that I want to support those people. It's not like all who I serve, but it is a very like it's a tough thing. And I've worked with nutritionists and trainers in the past who are like, I don't work with people who are in recovery because it has a lot of nuance and a lot of unique challenges. And so I'm truly launching this business for my younger self. So I really, really believe strongly in supporting that community.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been so, so beautiful. I do have one last question for you because you really are like, you're just such a shining light and it's so beautiful. And so I would love to ask, and I know it's probably a big question, but for the listeners out there, if you could give them like one or two things of like, how can we heal forward?
Wow. Wow. Let me sit with that for a sec. So, something that is very core to healing forward is improving your relationship to yourself and doing that really deep foundational work of recognizing your emotional blockers and mental barriers and the stories that are holding you back and how they might actually be impacting your ability or lack thereof to achieve the health goals that you want. Um, and so I would say that there's plenty of diets and quick fixes and solutions, but that's not what is going to lead to lasting change. It's like getting really clear with yourself, coming from a place of self-love and working through those blockers and barriers. Achieving physical goals will be so much easier. It will be a true lifestyle change and it won't be a band-aid solution. And I am a testament to that. I truly like am in the best shape of my life and the happiest I've ever been because I am doing the deep work, the shadow work, the inner child work, rewriting the story for myself. And so that's what I would encourage people to do is to really take inventory of your inner world before seeking these external solutions in the form of health and wellness.
Yeah. And when you come, and that's like, oh, such a gorgeous message of it really does. It comes from within, and no matter what it is you're going after, whether it be a health goal, a physical health goal, or mental health goal, or really
Yeah.
anything else, really that should always be step one is you got to meet yourself first. You got to love on yourself. You really have to come home to yourself. And
Yes.
when you do that and you really live in that place of, I love every part of me and I'm not going to shove away or punish or, feel shame towards any version of myself, younger or present. That
Mhm.
is really where the healing happens. It's like I have to be the loving parent to my inner child.
Yes.
Every
I love that you said coming home to yourself. I love that analogy and symbolism and that like treating your soul and your physical body as your house. Like you want to take care of your home. And so like when you come at your health from that perspective, it's like, okay, your foundation, you're working on building your foundation so that it's strong and sturdy. And then you can, accessorize and revamp and redecorate, but the foundation's got to be really strong. And taking care of yourself is a beautiful, beautiful practice and arguably essential for us to be our, most vibrant self, step into our fullest potential.
Amazing. This has been so beautiful, Allie. I'm so happy that you agreed to come on the show and share your beautiful wisdom. I would love for you to share with the listeners if they loved what they're hearing and they want to work with you more, how can they find you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jessica. It's truly an honor. You are such an expander for me and someone who has made their dreams a reality. I look to you as a huge source of inspiration that it is possible to have a thriving business and follow your purpose.
Mm.
Um, so I'm in the very early stages of that, but my health coaching business is called Healing Forward Health. I just launched my website. I also have a Substack where I write about the health and wellness topics that I care about, and that's called Healing Forward. But to circle back to the coaching business, I offer one-on-one coaching in a longer 4-month coaching container, as well as some smaller jumpstart packages if you want to just dip your toes in to the Healing Forward experience. And then I'm also offering wellness workshops and corporate consulting for corporate teams that are looking to prioritize wellness in the workplace. And as a former corporate girly, I know firsthand what it's like to, want to prioritize your health while also being a badass in the workplace. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure we'll have all that information in the show notes. I would love to offer a discount to any listeners of this podcast. So if you mention that you came across my work through Jessica, I would love to offer a very generous discount for coaching.
Oh, that's so amazing. And you're so generous. Thank you so much for doing that. So, yes, all of the links will be in the show notes, and we'll definitely make sure that the listeners can get their hands on you and get in touch with you because I think that everybody needs to have a little session with you and just learn the very beautiful messages that you have to offer, which is how to come home to yourselves and how to create that beautiful foundation. So, thank you for trusting your intuition and taking the leap because so many people are going to benefit from what you have to offer. And I'm so thrilled that you're doing this.
Thank you so much. It feels really good. I really appreciate that.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, Allie.